The sharp sound of the slash tore through the night, the sword blade radiating a deep red glow as it struck down the giant black scorpion monster. Its dark armored skin was torn apart, accompanied by a piercing scream reacting to the sudden attack. The monster roared in pain, swinging its claw to fling its opponent into the air. The agile figure soared high against the starry sky, preparing for a bold counterattack. As soon as the opportunity arose, the one-on-one skill was activated. Cheon Yuxiang's body shone with a cold blue light, his power stats immediately increasing by 10%, signaling an evenly matched battle was about to begin. The skill activation tilted the balance of the fight. Cheon Yuxiang flipped midair, delivering a sharp slash toward the target. At the same time, all of the Black Scorpion stats were drastically reduced, putting it at a disadvantage. From a distant corner, Jinhyuk observed everything with deep eyes. Inside, he realized this was the first time he had seen Cheon Yuxiang display such a determined and somewhat unusual expression. Even though the opponent was weakened, Cheon Yuxiang remained vigilant. His eyes flashed with fierce lightning, showing an unyielding will. Though strong, he was not perfect. Without hesitation, Cheon Yuxiang activated the music of the sword. Blue sword streaks danced rhythmically like the beat of death, slicing through the monster's thick armor at a speed impossible to track with the naked eye. Struck by a critical hit, the black scorpion howled in pain. Blood poured from its forehead, its body staggering backward, signaling it was about to lose control completely. From the ground, Cheon Yuxiang smiled sharply. Under the glowing light of his technique, his gaze held both confidence and challenge, ready to drive his opponent to their inevitable end. At the peak of the battle, a piercing screech rose from the horizon. A gigantic object pierced through the ground, accompanied by enormous tentacles stretching out, signaling an even greater danger had just appeared. From above, Jinhyuk stood motionless, eyes following the chaotic scene below. A hidden mission had just been activated to eliminate 3 great disasters rising in the heart of the city. Rewards would vary based on completion level. A voice echoed from nowhere, offering help, but Jinhyuk firmly declined. In this situation, outside interference would attract too much attention and he could not reveal his trump card too early. He recalled the original plan to exploit the chaos in the Murim world to steal valuable items. But Liao Wei's greed had exceeded expectations, causing the situation to spiral out of control. The harsh reality unfolded before his eyes. Amidst the rubble lay countless corpses, blood flowing in streams. 2 innocent victims had lost their lives due to one person's careless plan. Jinhyuk clenched his teeth tightly, a simmering anger rising. He was no saint, but this time the matter had crossed all limits. A green magical flame glowed in his palm, signaling the moment to act had come. Jinhyuk, wielding 2 weapons, stood tall amid the blood-red sunset, declaring angrily, "Now I'm really pissed off." He raised his bow, drawing back the string with 3 arrows of divine power. His body tensed, eyes fully focused, each movement precise to perfection. The 3 arrows shot through the air, leaving sharp blue trails that tore through the atmosphere. Each arrow struck its target as if programmed by exacting hatred. At a high altitude, one of the 3 leading arrows sped forward at an unimaginable velocity, generating a strong swirling airflow, signaling that a skill was about to be activated. As soon as the first arrow touched the ground, a triangular barrier exploded with light. Jinhyuk had activated 2-star wind seal, imprisonment barrier. The giant monster was officially trapped in a cage he had created. Without hesitation, Jinhyuk charged straight into the center of the monster confined within the barrier. With 2 swords in hand, he was ready to deliver the first finishing blow. As a dazzling light flared behind him, Jinhyuk activated the skill Mandala. A sacred energy spread like a radiant mandala, concentrating all power into his body. At the moment of the strike, the glowing sword in Jinhyuk's hand descended directly onto the monster's head. A white light tore through the darkness, piercing through the creature's entire magic-resistant skin. Though remaining calm, Jinhyuk silently reminded himself from now on he would allow no mistakes. Every calculation in battle had to be absolutely perfect, leaving no room for error. In another direction, Teresa had just cast the skill Divine Healing. With extraordinary speed, she ran across the battlefield, bringing healing light to where it was most needed. However, the infected civilians were going berserk, rushing forward in madness. The healing light only made them more violent, screaming like wild beasts. Realizing the danger from her own defensive power, Teresa immediately adjusted her strategy. She could not touch the civilians, otherwise the energy pressure from her body would cause them to disintegrate. After regaining composure, Teresa knew she had to deal with the tulpa first. The dark-shaped enemy stood before her, its sharp gaze and sinister smile intensifying the tension. At that moment, Divine Descent was activated. Teresa descended like a battle angel enveloped in holy light. The ground exploded beneath the unleashed power. The the tulpa could not hide its surprise. The sparkling holy light surrounding Teresa forced it to retreat. The shockwave from her strike caused a fierce explosion, breaking the battlefield's balance. In the chaos, Teresa leapt high, swinging her sword to create a streak of light cutting through the controlled crowd. Though unwilling to harm them, she had to clear a path to reach the true enemy, the tulpa entity. Activating the skill, Divine Reinforcement, Teresa's body radiated with divine aura. Her eyes shone with determination. This time, the attack would not fail. Teresa's sword pierced fiercely into the tulpa's chest. Under the brilliant light emitted by the technique, the tulpa's dark armor began to crack, signaling an unprecedented powerful impact. The glowing sword shattered the tulpa's dark armor. The crack sound echoed like a bell signaling the collapse of the demonic defense. Not losing initiative, the tulpa immediately counterattacked. A strike of deep purple energy burst from its demonic weapon, hitting Teresa hard, throwing her far back and causing a massive explosion. Though knocked back, Teresa quickly spun to land with a roll, maintaining balance and preparing to counterattack. Her resilient stance amid the ruined city showed she had no intention of retreating. The tulpa growled softly, revealing sharp teeth and glowing eyes. Despite injuries, the entity appeared confident, even seeming more excited when pushed into a wounded state. Noticing the effectiveness of the holy strike, Teresa quickly reassessed her tactics. She realized she only needed to avoid attacking the controlled civilians and focus all her strength on the tulpa's true body. The tulpa gradually changed state. Cracks on its body began to spread, magical energy leaking out causing it to tremble, but its eyes shone terrifyingly, signaling it was about to launch a counterattack. From the middle of the night sky, the tulpa swung its arm carrying dozens of purple energy threads, like demonic tentacles sweeping through the air. Each stream radiated an obsessive and insane power, ready to wipe out everything in its path. Under relentless attacks from the manipulated crowd, Teresa was forced to launch a decisive counterattack, knocking back two charging enemies with the sacred light she had just activated. But the demon did not stop. The dark threads continued to shoot out, causing many innocent people to be struck and begin convulsing unconsciously, becoming puppets under its control. Witnessing this scene, Teresa was stunned. She clearly understood that, if this continued, more innocent people would become uncontrollable killing tools. In a moment when memories surfaced, images of Teresa's childhood appeared. She clearly heard the stern but loving teachings. The family's duty was to protect civilians, even at the cost of their own lives. The Laurencia family crest, a symbol of honor and responsibility, appeared vividly in her mind. This was the legacy Teresa had to bear, no matter the sacrifice. The memory ended with her mother's affectionate smile, the final words still echoing in her heart. "Remember that, my dear daughter." Reality returned like a sharp, cold blade. Teresa was stunned as she felt fresh blood splatter over her. Once again, fear and obsession paralyzed her will. The monster's insane laughter echoed as if reveling in Teresa's helplessness. It was not just killing, it was crushing her spirit. Around her, the manipulated people fell like puppets with cut strings. Teresa stood motionless, eyes full of shock and pain, drenched in the blood of those she could not save. An anonymous shoe rolled past her feet, a blood trail stretching behind like a knife cutting through conscience. Teresa trembled, uttering a word, "No," like a belated prayer in hell. In a life-or-death moment, Teresa took the fatal stab from the dark creature instead of anyone else. Blood gushed out violently, her face shocked, eyes still refusing to accept the cruel reality before her. The mental pain seemed even greater than the physical wound. Teresa trembled, tears flowing as she blamed herself for not being able to take the blow for someone else. "It should have been me." A thick black tear fell from Teresa's eye. It was no longer an ordinary tear, it was the first sign of decay, of a soul beginning to be tainted by darkness. A system announcement rang coldly. "The Saintess is showing signs of corruption." Amid the mocking laughter of the demonic creature, Teresa collapsed, powerless against the raging tide engulfing her. With heavy steps, the dark creature approached Teresa, intending to finish her off. An evil smile revealed sharp teeth, and its eyes emitted a chilling murderous intent. It leaned back, summoning a massive black energy portal shaped like a giant mouth full of jagged teeth, a weapon seemingly capable of swallowing any life before it. A mysterious jar with teeth and vines appeared, crashing down from the sky, smashing the ground with a violent shock. An ancient entity had awakened, ready to join the battle. From afar, Jinhyuk suddenly rushed to the battlefield. The chaotic scene unfolded under the blood-red sky, but his steps were firm. He arrived just in time and would not let things continue to spiral out of control. Jinhyuk's furious gaze swept across the battlefield, locking eyes with Teresa. His look seemed to strip her soul bare, accompanied by a brief, cold question. "What are you doing?" Meanwhile, the dark creature tried to push back the jar blocking its path. It gritted its teeth and bitterly admitted, "I anticipated that Tulpa would be a particularly troublesome nuisance." Amidst the blood-soaked corpses of fallen soldiers, the saintess bowed her head in silence, her eyes dark and full of horror. She could not understand why, amidst this tragic battlefield, there was something more unusual than death itself. Elsewhere, Jinhyuk clenched his hand, glowing with brilliant blue light. His gaze was cold, as if his anger had surpassed control. He did not hide his murderous intent, declaring decisively, "This time, he would not let the enemy die easily." The sky tore apart into shards of electric light. A gigantic portal from another dimension opened. A radiant stream of pink-purple energy poured down to the ground, bringing forth the presence of an ancient and nightmarish force. A giant set of teeth appeared within the light, grinding and crackling with energy. Chains of light surrounded the creature, but its danger was undeniable. The system immediately warned the ancient beast Goguma had appeared in its mature form. The chains of Tower of Trials began to take effect but were still insufficient to fully suppress the monster. Jinhyuk smiled faintly, his neck cracked under the pressure of magical power, yet his eyes remained calm. An announcement sounded, his mana output had increased by 50%. With terrifying confidence, he affirmed mana was no longer a concern for him at this moment. Goguma's glowing eye flashed amid the chain-filled sky, reflecting the sealed primal power. A single glance was enough to make the weaker tremble. A swirling purple energy vortex formed in midair, expanding and spiraling deeper like a death whirlpool. The power was accumulating at an uncontrollable level. Goguma opened its mouth, swirling energy forming a massive magical orb. Though bound by chains, it seemed ready to unleash a destructive attack of catastrophic scale. Below, the shadowy enemy looked up with expectation and malice. In a critical moment, a dome-shaped light shield covered Jinhyuk and the Saintess. The system announced 3-star protective shield activated. He had managed to deploy defense before the impending devastating attack. Jinhyuk leaned close to Teresa's ear, his voice calm but cold amid the chaotic battlefield. The severely injured girl's eyes still shone with fierce determination as she heard the simple yet absolute order, "Blow them all away." Their spirits united as one, ready to confront the engulfing darkness. A sudden blinding light burst forth, causing the purple-armored monster to convulse violently. It screamed in pain and fear, realizing the opposing energy was no longer something to be underestimated. That light was not only powerful but carried the will to crush evil at its root. High above, Goguma, the ancient beast, opened its mouth to unleash its ultimate attack, Judgment Sword. A colossal beam of energy tore through space, shining like a divine sword descending upon its enemy, declaring that the battle had officially entered a phase of total destruction. The terrifying bombardment from Goguma's technique left a deep black hole in the heart of the city. The ground was shattered as if it had just borne the full fury of a divine creature torn from its chains. At the center of the ruins, Tulpa's body lay motionless amidst the debris, the cold system announcing its death, marking the end of the recent threat. As the violence subsided, Teresa lay collapsed on the ground, but a familiar small figure, Yam, ran over, gently licking her face like a call back from the brink of death. Yam sat beside Teresa, intently looking at Jinhyuk with clear eyes. Life was still present, but danger lurked close by. Jinhyuk silently observed everything through his blazing red eyes, activated with Eye of Gluttony, preparing to face a terrifying truth that had just emerged. With those eyes, Jinhyuk clearly saw Teresa showing signs of corruption, something impossible for a holy knight. This confused and put him on high alert. A voice sounded from behind, suspecting Teresa had been corrupted. Jinhyuk examined her carefully and replied firmly, "Not yet, still not." From the void, Alice spoke sarcastically. She emphasized that Jinhyuk surely understood very well what would happen when a holy knight falls into corruption, a warning not to be taken lightly. Without denial, Jinhyuk acknowledged with a serious look. He knew well that this would lead to serious consequences affecting everyone. Teresa opened her eyes, giving a vague smile, admitting she was no longer the same. Jinhyuk realized that from now on, they could no longer fully trust her, a thin line between teammate and threat. As the battlefield effect was cancelled, the massive body of the black scorpion monster collapsed to the ground with a rumble, signaling its complete end. The system screen continuously displayed level-up notifications as Yuzeong, severely wounded, plunged his sword deep into the fallen enemy's body. He had surpassed his own limits. With trembling but determined eyes, Yuzeong looked up and caught sight of Jinhyuk standing opposite, the figure who had always been beyond his reach. Jinhyuk said little. He just looked down at his comrade who had fallen under pressure and said simply, "You did it." Though bleeding all over and exhausted, Yuzeong still tightly gripped the broken sword. He accepted the truth that he was not strong enough yet, but his pride would not allow him to give up. For the first time after a series of failures, Yuziang smiled bloodily but proudly. Light flashed from the cracked blade in his hand as proof that a new path had opened. Jinhyuk looked at Yuziang thoughtfully. In his eyes was acknowledgement, a warrior gradually growing from the ashes of defeat. Without hesitation, Jinhyuk placed his hand on Yuziang's cracked sword and ordered, "Throw away that broken sword." He had prepared a reward for his overcoming. To Yuziang's astonished gaze, a new sword appeared shining with intricate patterns and divine radiance. It was the heavenly sword of gathering clouds. Jinhyuk sincerely praised, "Well done, Yuziang." As the system sent an urgent message requesting a return to the ballroom, a new chapter in their journey was about to begin. Before all the guests at the party, a senior manager stepped onto the podium to declare. During the event, the Murim forces had illegally interfered with the system without permission from the managers. Bowing deeply before the crowd, he officially apologized as one of the senior managers of the tower, causing murmurs and whispers to rise throughout the hall. However, the apology did not come with leniency. The manager raised his hand, eyes stern, preparing to take strong action to handle this violation. With a snap of his fingers and a surge of purple energy, a magical portal was summoned in the air, radiating the authoritative pressure of an irreversible punishment. Within the swirling magical aura, the manager, Hastings, stood proudly, clearly declaring that he had issued an official verdict before all attendees. He affirmed that Murim's infringement was extremely serious and unforgivable, clearly expressing the stance of an enforcer of order and law within the tower. The punishment was immediately imposed. All Murim forces coins would be completely confiscated, serving as a stern warning to any other powers intending to overstep their bounds. Hearing the punishment announcement, the Murim members were stunned. Some were furious, some terrified, while the leader could only grit his teeth in powerless rage. Amid the crowd beginning to move and disperse, the martial artist hurried anxiously. He silently blamed himself for trusting Kaman and Moyong-su, who had now completely vanished. Lost in thought, he accidentally bumped into someone coming the opposite way. Surprised and confused, he was about to apologize, unaware that this moment would lead to another unexpected development. A piercing scream echoed through the hall when a Murim member discovered the heavenly sword of gathering clouds in someone else's hand. Panic was evident on his face, affirming that the treasure rightfully belonged to them. Unable to contain his anger, the fighter rushed forward, grabbed the person holding the sword, and shouted accusations that he had stolen it from Murim, full of humiliation and resentment in every word. Faced with the baseless accusation, the man in black coldly questioned back, his eyes gradually revealing murderous intent. His expression clearly showed the intense anger rising after being blatantly slandered. The Murim man suddenly recognized something familiar in the other's appearance, his shock causing him to hesitate for a moment, and then everything happened too fast. The accused gripped the sword hilt tightly. Light flashed from the hilt of the heavenly sword of gathering clouds, signaling an imminent action, swift, decisive, and merciless. As the dust cleared, the two previously aggressive men lay dazed on the ground. The man left only a cold warning, "I spared your lives, so keep your mouths shut." From behind, another figure stared blankly at the calm departure of the young man. A system notification appeared. The condition to copy a skill had been fulfilled. The system screen continued displaying a new message. The skill Unsheath had been successfully copied. A skill that increases power and speed by 25% for the first attack after drawing the sword. While the chaotic scene gradually settled, Jinhyuk and the mysterious dwarf manager silently observed from above, as if everything had unfolded exactly as they had planned. Below, other players began choosing the forces they would join. Jinhyuk should have blended into that crowd, quietly making his decision. But he was no ordinary person. The young manager, with a remorseful expression, bowed and apologized to Kang Jinhyuk for failing to prevent the unexpected interference from the tower's forces, considering it a lapse in his managerial responsibility. Standing on the balcony, Jinhyuk remained calm before the apology. He acknowledged a simple truth: if some force within the tower had decided to act, no manager could stop it. The manager nodded, then smiled meaningfully, admitting that Jinhyuk not only survived but truly surpassed all expectations, far better than he had ever hoped. As moonlight spread over the rooftop, the manager leaned in to ask Jinhyuk about his upcoming plans and whether he could offer further support in his role as a manager. Jinhyuk raised two fingers with his usual calm expression, answering that he had exactly two requests, a clear sign that he was prepared for his next move. A sudden brilliant light burst from the large window, attracting everyone's attention in the hall and signaling a major upcoming event. The petite manager stepped into the hall with solemnity, declaring that he had a very important announcement, while Jinhyuk quietly followed behind. All conference attendees held their breath as the opening words were spoken, and the atmosphere throughout the hall gradually grew tense with anxious whispers. The manager made a shocking declaration. Kang Jin-hyuk had chosen not to join any faction, a decision that stirred commotion, leaving everyone puzzled about his true intentions. Immediately after, he added, rather than choosing a side, Jin-hyuk decided to establish his own faction. The announcement shocked the entire hall, while Jin-hyuk smiled confidently. Amid the noisy crowd, one person could not hide their astonishment at Jin-hyuk's declaration, questioning whether such an action was permitted, while another bluntly stated that none of them were even official residents of the tower yet. In response to the doubt, the Goblin manager officially announced Kang Jin-hyuk had earned 1,500,000 merit points in the recent event, a number far beyond the hidden threshold, allowing anyone to form their own faction regardless of origin. Looking at Jin-hyuk with a meaningful gaze, the Goblin tacitly admitted that how he discovered this hidden condition was puzzling, a secret even he was unsure if anyone else knew about. Suddenly, a voice rang out in anger. A powerful figure wearing a red cloak, the leader of the Empire forces, stepped forward, loudly declaring a veto against the establishment of a new faction. The name Fenheimer came to Jin-hyuk's mind, clearly identifying the opponent before him, a person not easily compromised, carrying a shimmering power behind him. The Goblin, though still smiling, immediately confirmed that the veto had been activated. According to Tower law, any of the three main factions can veto the formation of a new faction, the effect lasting for 1 year. Fenheimer did not accept silence. He stepped forward with a harsh tone, reminding Jin-hyuk of his previous promise to join the Empire faction, while the Goblin cleverly withdrew from the awkward situation. With a clearly angry face, Fenheimer gritted his teeth and retorted, accusing Jin-hyuk of playing with words. He emphasized that Jin-hyuk had used Empire resources to achieve today's results and therefore was not allowed to betray the agreement. A wave of mana enveloped Fenheimer. In his erupting fury, he did not hesitate to unleash his power, demanding Jin-hyuk fulfill his commitment immediately with a deadly tone. Contrary to the pressure from his opponent, Kang Jin-hyuk merely smiled slightly, lightly flicking his coat with full confidence. He showed no fear, as if everything had been planned from the start. At the center of all eyes from the tower's factions, Kang Jin-hyuk stood alone but determined. He understood clearly, if he retreated this time, his dream of creating his own faction would vanish into thin air. Instead of fear, Jin-hyuk gave a sly smile. Cornered, he knew this moment was the time to unleash the secret trump card he had prepared beforehand. He quietly called Alice's name, the girl with noble vampire blood. Still lazily lying as previously ordered, Alice did not expect that Jin-hyuk would need her right now. Upon hearing Jin-hyuk's request for power, Alice's eyes flared with the characteristic bright red of a pure-blood vampire. She immediately understood the moment to fight had come. Jin-hyuk activated the skill Comprehensive Sharing. In an instant, Alice von Ataraxia's ultimate skill, Bloodlord, was fully transferred to him. A surging energy burst forth. Surrounding Jin-hyuk were blood-colored circles, indicating that he could now manipulate the blood of all creatures within his influence. Terrible power poured through Jin-hyuk's eyes and body. The aura of a Bloodlord was forming, causing the space to tremble and sending chills down the spines of those around him. Jin-hyuk immediately charged forward. With Bloodlord, he easily tore through defenses and launched a direct attack, catching the Royal Legion leader off guard. Onlookers like Melina and her comrades could only watch in shock as the terrifying reversal unfolded, all swept away by a wave of red blood flooding the hall. Fenheimer felt the blood in his body boiling in waves. His eyes full of astonishment confirmed Jin-hyuk was not only resisting but gaining the upper hand. Under the pressure of the approaching blazing red mana, leader Fenheimer could not hide his panic. His face relaxed in shock and fear, swallowing hard as he realized his opponent had far exceeded all initial expectations. This was no longer a political dialogue but a preemptive warning strike with an unstoppable momentum. Fenheimer finally recognized the bitter truth: Kang Jin-hyuk was never someone who could be tamed. From beginning to end, Jin-hyuk acted according to his own will and plan, belonging to no faction. The surging murderous aura along with a dangerous smile was a proud declaration of an ambition no one could control. While all eyes from various forces in the tower were focused on him, Kang Jin-hyuk understood that every action he took at this moment was being closely monitored. He gave a confident smile and silently confirmed this was the perfect time to use the strategic card he had prepared beforehand. When called by name, Alice appeared carefree, lazily lying down and responding with an indifferent attitude, completely unaware that she was about to become the focal point of a grand plan. As soon as Jinhyuk requested to borrow her power, Alice's eyes immediately blazed red, signaling an imminent powerful connection. System confirmation: the skill, complete sharing, has been activated. The full power of Blood Lord from Alice is officially transferred to Kang Jinhyuk. A fierce wave of energy exploded around Jinhyuk. From now on, he could control the blood of all living creatures within his influence. His eyes emitted deadly red rays, shaking the entire auditorium, signaling a nightmare that had just been awakened. The truth about the Blood Lord skill was immediately revealed. Jinhyuk faced Fenheimer head-on without hesitation as bloody power spread throughout the space. Those around, including Melina and other faction leaders, were horrified upon realizing the terrifying extent of the skill. Fenheimer began to clearly feel the blood inside him boiling. His body was being manipulated from within, panic evident in his eyes, on his once authoritative face. Fenheimer, with a stern gaze and an electric purple aura surrounding him, left a solemn but meaningful statement: the next meeting would be unavoidable. The power around him made the promise sound like a warning. Turning his back within the magic circle, Fenheimer decisively withdrew, leaving a message that negotiations about future relations would continue. From that moment, Fenheimer, once rigid and majestic, no longer showed coercion. The city quickly returned to its daily rhythm. The sound of metal echoed through the reconstruction site as if to conceal the chaos and horror that had once occurred there. The reconstruction of Beijing after the outbreak proceeded rapidly, but more notably, no one truly investigated the truth behind the disaster. Silence enveloped the unexplained causes. A giant memorial was built to honor those who fell during the crisis. Although the cause remained unclear, society chose remembrance over confronting the mysteries. Photos, letters, and white flowers lined up beneath the memorial stone as silent witnesses to the loss of countless families. A gentle hand placed a flower down in quiet mourning. In the flash of media cameras, a female reporter bowed to place flowers, while sharp questions arose about the absence of Guild Master Namgung Cheon and Guild China's official response. Shouting, the last remaining representative remained silent amid the sea of lenses and questions. The wound on her forehead and her casted arm were living proof of the disaster she had just survived. Shouting's voice rose before the media. Guild China, once the largest organization, had completely collapsed, with all leadership and guild masters disappearing without a trace. But the truth she revealed was even more shocking. The ones who saved them from the outbreak were not the government or Guild China, but another individual, someone outside any official faction. During the solemn memorial, the narrator revealed the identities of the first two to appear when the disaster broke out, none other than Kang Jinhyuk and Cheon Yuzeong, who led the front lines in that chaos. Standing silently before the memorial wall covered with flowers and notes, the mysterious figure in a black cloak blended into the crowd paying tribute. He knew well that if he and Yuzeong had not arrived in time, the death toll would have been many times worse. Half of Kang Jinhyuk's face was covered in shadow as he silently gazed at the engraved names of the deceased, uttering not a single word. Yet inside him, a surge of emotions threatened to burst forth. As he turned to leave, he encountered a family weeping beside the portrait of their loved one. The stifled sobs and trembling shoulders forced Jinhyuk to suppress the emotional response that was already fracturing within him. The system immediately activated the skill Cold Heart. An invisible layer of ice enveloped Jinhyuk's mind, helping him maintain a steady expression and control his emotions amid the grief that could move even the toughest person. Under the skill's influence, Jinhyuk's steady hand brought a white chrysanthemum toward the wall, a simple gesture, yet one filled with deep respect for the departed. The flower gently fell, blending with the bouquets already placed, like a silent but sincere farewell. The flashes of the press continued to flicker, but Jinhyuk turned his back and left the ceremony. Elsewhere, Teresa lay sprawled on the bed with an excited expression. Being forced to sit still for so long had driven her nearly mad. Now being free was an indescribable joy. Jinhyuk smiled at Teresa's unexpected remark. She hadn't expected that he had truly formed a new force. For him, it was just a necessary step in a long-term plan. Without hesitation, Jinhyuk confirmed spending the entire 1,150,000 coins to raise the member limit of the force to 23 people. A major investment, but absolutely essential for the upcoming battle. After Shouting's interview, profits from Jinhyuk's channel soared. He realized this was a rare opportunity to reinvest all his funds into a bigger goal. The system announced that the Hardcore Gamer Corporation had expanded its member limit to 23 and allowed Jinhyuk to send recruitment invitations immediately. With a single touch, invitations were generated by the system, glowing and floating as if bestowed by a rising organization. Each invitation was sent out, flying everywhere like Jinhyuk's strategic messengers, signaling the official formation of the new force. Immediately, the system notified that the first member had joined. Jin-hyuk smiled with satisfaction, unsurprised by the quick response. The first to accept the invitation was Yuzeong, a cold and sharp swordsman who had fought alongside Jin-hyuk in many life-or-death battles. Following Yuzeong, other key members joined one after another: Taemin, Yanawa, Melina, and Yuri's group, all formidable warriors who had been close to Jin-hyuk. Although Melina's expression clearly showed annoyance at having to follow the invitation, she could not refuse reluctantly. She was still part of the new group. Although Melina's expression clearly showed annoyance at having to follow the invitation, she could not refuse reluctantly. She was still part of the new group. However, Teresa gently declined. With a quiet sad look, she explained that she had committed to another force and could not betray her promise to them. Teresa was the only one to refuse Jin-hyuk's invitation. As a holy knight, she chose a path aligned with her abilities and ideals, joining the Empire instead of an independent team. Elsewhere, a long-haired girl received a notification from the system. She was stunned as she saw the invitation content appear before her. No one else but the boss of Floor 5 in the Challenge Tower, the last official member to join Jin-hyuk's force. Immediately, Floor 5 was confirmed as the territory of Hardcore Gamer Corporation. Jin-hyuk knew well that owning the boss of Floor 5 meant nearly unlimited resource exploitation from the lower floors. But for him, this was not yet the end point. Shortly after, Jin-hyuk activated the special reward he earned from the battle with Tulpa, the free copy card, an item allowing skill copying without conditions. He chose Osiris's skill, Sanctuary of the Sun, a powerful divine skill that allows the regeneration of solar power, significantly enhancing his combat abilities. Seizing the opportunity, Jin-hyuk continued to allocate the newly acquired stat points. Attributes like strength and magic were all noticeably upgraded. The stat increases happened simultaneously. Agility, HP, stamina all surged impressively, signaling a leap in overall power. As the notification sound rang out, Jin-hyuk's gaze sharpened. He was carefully checking the final results after a series of calculated preparations. Jin-hyuk's status panel appeared, level 67, superior strength and skills, a long list of abilities clearly showing one thing: he was no longer an ordinary player but a force about to shake the entire tower. Jin-hyuk smiled with satisfaction as he observed the results of his perfectly strategic calculations. For him, every step was bringing the whole situation closer to absolute perfection. Wearing a cunning expression, Jin-hyuk began planning the next move, seemingly anticipating every development. Meanwhile, Alice silently watched from behind, appearing both puzzled and helpless. Alice chuckled softly and sighed at Jin-hyuk's scapegoat expression. To her, this man always made things absurd yet was impossible to hate, both dangerous and charming in his own way. A flash appeared in Alice's eyes. She suddenly sensed something unusual, something didn't fit between Jin-hyuk and any normal person she had ever known in the tower. Alice sat up abruptly, a strong sense of alertness rising. Suspicion reached its limit as scattered clues began connecting into a bigger picture in her mind. She started piecing everything together. Jin-hyuk was the first to borrow the Bloodlord's power, and the only one who knew too many forbidden things no one ever spoke of. The more she thought, the deeper her doubt grew. Alice intended to approach and ask directly to end all doubts. A decisive step hit the ground, showing she had made a clear choice to face the truth. But just as she stepped off the bed, an abnormal energy flow immediately made her freeze. Her body reacted instantly to an unusual phenomenon in the air. In front of Alice, Jin-hyuk was activating his personal interface. But what stunned her were the details displayed. No resident in the tower could possess such skills and systems. Stunned by the inexplicable scene, Alice could only utter one question, simple but weighty: "What are you doing?" After the surprise moment, the white-haired girl held her head in thought, reflecting her own confusion. She felt something was wrong. She had clearly intended to ask Jin-hyuk about his next plan. Jin-hyuk casually responded to her concern. Without hesitation, he revealed his intention to advance to Floor 8 of the Challenge Tower, signaling the next turning point in his journey. But before leaving, Jin-hyuk gave a sinister smile, a sign that he still had some unfinished schemes. The loose ends he mentioned were certainly no small matter. When a knock sounded, a familiar figure from the management organization appeared. A strange arm prepared to open the door, signaling an important meeting had just begun. Jin-hyuk, dressed in a neat white suit, handed an envelope to the elderly manager and asked him to deliver it to Young Homyeong, a figure from the martial arts faction. This was the second task he assigned to this manager. Though unclear about the content, the manager agreed to fulfill the request. However, his expression clearly showed curiosity as he asked about the true purpose of the sealed letter. Jin Hyuk merely smiled enigmatically, revealing nothing further. That smile signaled absolute confidence, and also a subtle refusal of any unnecessary suspicion. The scene shifts to a dark cave, stalactite cave on floor 5. Jin Hyuk stands in the cold, gloomy space, announcing that the letter is a proposal for a deal, marking the beginning of a strategic negotiation. A mysterious figure responds to the invitation with a sudden appearance. A slender silhouette lands on sharp, spike-like rock pillars carrying a dense, dangerous aura. Jin Hyuk gently closes his eyes, focusing his will. At that moment, it was as if he locked himself into an absolute serious state, ready for the upcoming negotiation or confrontation. As his eyes slowly open, a cold light flashes in Jin Hyuk's gaze. He is fully focused, prepared for the decisive meeting at the cave on floor 5, a place where every step holds risks and strategic advantages. Atop a sharp rock peak, a solemn shadow stands ready. A voice echoes through the cave, "You have arrived." In response, Jin Hyuk straightens up, eyes fixed on the opponent, asserting his initiative in the forthcoming negotiation. From above, the leader of the Black Winds Society of the Murim forces, Yang Homyang, watches coldly. With sharp eyes and overwhelming presence, he not only represents a powerful organization but also carries a battle-hardened past. Jin Hyuk raises the mysterious book high, a cold smile appearing on his face as he activates the skill Eye of Greed. His blazing red eyes shine like a signal for an uneven deal where all truths will be exposed. "Shall we begin the exchange?" he says, pressing the opponent into a defensive position from the start. The world of martial arts, where fists, feet, and weapons intertwine, is called Murim, the land of extraordinary warriors, where laws are written by strength and fame. Murim is not only an isolated world but also one of the core forces dominating the middle tiers of the Challenge Tower, where masters ascend with pride and unstoppable ambition. Among these martial arts superhumans, the most prominent is the Heavenly Demon, a divine demon standing at the pinnacle of power and the ultimate symbol of strength in the martial world. Yang Homyang, a member of the demon sect, despite his superior strength, is underestimated and looked down upon within the sect. Now, with the entire Murim alliance, including Yang Homyang, having lost all their accumulated coins, the desire to prove himself has awakened stronger than ever within him. Facing a mysterious opponent, Yang Homyang asked directly with a mix of caution and curiosity, "What do you want from me?" Yang Homyang's personal information appeared, a level 65 martial artist, possessing outstanding internal power along with many skills in the dark and chaos systems, proving a great potential long wasted. The system set the condition for skill copying. As long as hope is awakened in Yang Homyang's heart, the opponent can copy one of his skills. The opportunity has opened. With a sudden move, the protagonist threw a scroll of secret manual toward Yang Homyang, an action that stunned the opponent as he did not yet understand the intention. Staring at the manual in his hand, Yang Homyang was amazed by the proactive action. The man just smiled confidently and replied, "Take it. I have already gotten what I wanted." Carrying the newly received manual, Yang Homyang still felt doubtful inside. He muttered, trying to guess what the opponent was really plotting. However, his faith in the elite force of the Black Winds Society helped him keep calm for the moment. With greed flashing in his eyes, Yang Homyang firmly believed that if this was truly the sword manual of a sword saint, it would become the key to turning his fate within the sect and rising to a higher position. Touching each page, he felt a glimmer of hope creeping into his heart, an emotion he hadn't experienced for a long time. Yang Homyang imagined the glory approaching. As soon as he opened the page, the system notified that the copying condition was met. An innocent drawing appeared, a childhood diary of a child with a crude sketch of a cat named Poppy. The second picture was no better, still a scribbled drawing recording an incident of being scratched by Poppy and running away. Instead of supreme sword techniques, he only saw a meaningless joke before his eyes. The second picture was no better, still a scribbled drawing, recording an incident of being scratched by Poppy and running away. Instead of supreme sword techniques, he only saw a meaningless joke before his eyes. A mocking voice, accompanied by laughter, came from the opponent. He calmly explained that it was the childhood diary of a sword master, a precious item cleverly stolen. Anger exploded. Yang Homyang threw the book to the ground, shouting loudly in offense. All the costs to get here, all the expectations had become a farce. Still maintaining an arrogant calmness, the opponent began to raise his hand. He subtly emphasized that the real reason for this meeting was not a transaction but a warning lesson. A cold voice rang out, closing the mocking atmosphere. "Because you all acted so pitifully, I called you here to teach you a lesson." The young man clenched his fists tightly, his eyes flashing with iron determination. In that moment of rising spirit, he declared a shocking identity: disciple of the Black Emperor Dragon of Heaven and Earth. The name just uttered left the enemy stunned. His eyes widened in shock, unable to believe that his opponent dared to claim to be the disciple of such a legendary figure. The name Black Emperor echoed like thunder in everyone's mind. A hazy image appeared, a cold, tall figure, the one who once fought alongside the heavenly demon, the person behind that legend. The opponent could not hide his reverence when mentioning the Black Emperor. He regarded him as the spiritual ancestor of the Black Wind Society, a sacred symbol that could not be violated. Though suspicious of how an outsider knew that forbidden name, a cold order was given. He commanded his subordinates to withdraw, preparing for a direct confrontation. In a fit of furious rage, he roared. His eyes turned bloodshot, his body surged with murderous intent. The feeling of insulted honor made him declare war. He would personally tear apart anyone who dared mock the Black Emperor. In response, the young man just curled his lips into a slight smile. It seemed this was the reaction he had expected from the start. The battle had officially begun. Moving like a whirlwind, the assassin charged in with a deadly strike. But the young man remained still, his faint smile as if he already knew every move in advance. The skilled Dark Sky was activated, lightning and black energy surged around him. Explosive power like a collapsing sky was focused into a punch filled with destructive intent. The blow crashed down like a meteor, shattering the ground with an earth-shaking explosion. A scream rang out, "Die," signaling the start of an uncompromising confrontation. At the very moment the dark energy struck, the enemy leader's face changed color. Horror swept through his eyes as he realized the power coming at him was completely beyond control. Amidst the violent shock, the young man's hand tightly gripped the punch, bursting with black energy, causing his opponent to cry out in disbelief. A move considered supreme was stopped with astonishing ease. With a decisive spin, the protagonist hurled his opponent far away in the stunned gaze of the subordinates. The force unleashed not only defeated the body but also shattered the fighting spirit of the enemy. In the tense atmosphere, he clenched his fist once more. A stream of purple energy began to spread, marking the preparation for a completely new phase in the battle. Two skills, Grave of Swords and Dark Sky, fused together. Wild swirling energy surrounded the young man's body, signaling that a new technique was being born from the hands of the counterattacker himself. His lips curled into a cold smile. He declared that he possessed the ability to copy and merge skills, a power that made him not just a formidable opponent, but someone who far surpassed conventional limits. As soon as the fusion technique was completed, an announcement rang out: Dark Sky Demon Ruler has been activated. The enemy retreated in terror, realizing that skill was the legendary power of the Black Emperor. His fist blazed with eerie purple lightning as the young man poured all his strength into a finishing move called Darkstone Destructing Fist. A decisive blow was about to be unleashed. A scream tore through the air. The enemy leader could no longer remain calm, his whole body reeling under the intense pressure of an unstoppable attack. A terrifying explosion echoed throughout the mountains and forests. The landscape shook, the ground cracked, trees were uprooted as proof that the finishing blow had been delivered by one bearing the Black Emperor's bloodline. After the devastating attack, the entire land was gouged into a deep crater swirling with dark energy. The long-bearded elder stood frozen, his face pale before a power beyond imagination. As the dust cleared, Jinhyuk stepped forward, his cold gaze fixed on the one collapsing on the ground. He spoke calmly but with great authority. "Now, do you believe?" Clenching his hand still covered in dark purple magic, Jinhyuk gave a sharp smile. He declared without hesitation that he was the disciple of the Black Emperor. The elder was finally completely convinced. With wide, stunned eyes, he muttered a trembling confirmation. "Yes, it is him." Recalling previous rumors about the Black Emperor leaving the tower to seek talent, the elder began to piece everything together. Now he realized that everything had been planned from the start. Unable to contain his emotions, he bowed his head to the ground respectfully, loudly proclaiming his loyalty. "I bow before the great disciple of the Black Emperor." The scene of other disciples simultaneously kneeling and shouting in unison created a wave of shock. Jinhyuk stood there, towering like a god descended to earth. Tears streamed down his cheeks as Yang Homyeong wept. After years of being forgotten, he finally saw the light of glory, a chance to change his fate. In a humorous chibi scene, Jinhyuk smiled smugly to himself. He knew that just mentioning the name Black Emperor would make the Murin people obedient as dough, and now he could push all the troublesome work on Floor 8 to them. Floor 8 of the Challenge Tower appeared, a gigantic maze stretching 10,000 kilometers. It was a structure beyond imagination, ready to swallow anyone unprepared. The 8th floor of the Challenge Tower was described as a massive maze extending up to 10,000 kilometers, a vast land beyond imagination, astonishing anyone who witnessed its colossal scale. With a size comparable to Earth, the 8th floor possessed a rich and distinct ecosystem where dinosaurs and wild beasts coexisted, giving the feeling of being lost in a primordial world. Despite the grand landscape, this floor contained no real physical dangers. The only challenge was conquering the vast space itself, requiring endurance and patience rather than combat skills. The mission on the 8th floor was simply to find the energy crystal, a special item hidden somewhere in the endless maze, and it was the key to passing this floor's challenge. Melina, with a cold and determined demeanor, silently observed everything through her sunglasses, the reflected light in her eyes showing her preparation and resolve for the new journey. At hundreds of maze entrances, a bustling market formed where traders gathered to exchange rare items. The diverse resource system of the 8th floor had turned this place into an ideal trading hub. Melina felt she deserved some relaxation after being drained by Kang Jinhyuk for days. She allowed herself to shop and enjoy the lively atmosphere of the market. Just as she was about to ask the price of a piece of jewelry, Jinhyuk suddenly appeared, startling Melina before she could react to his sudden presence. In a flash, Jinhyuk quickly snatched Melina's sunglasses off, an act both teasing and authoritative that left her embarrassed as she hurriedly turned and walked away. Like a shadow, Jinhyuk immediately closed in behind Melina as she fled. His voice, carrying a frightening tone from behind, made her scream in shock, once again proving his absolute control over the situation. Melina, looking both tired and annoyed, was applying ice to her eye after a chaotic chase. She reluctantly confirmed that she was investigating the double wave phenomenon, a rare but extremely dangerous event within the tower. When asked again, Melina loudly snapped that she had just said exactly that. Sweaty and exhausted, her actions showed she had no patience for unnecessary questions. Jinhyuk sat calmly on a wooden crate, listening to Melina recount news from Lancelot. Signs of the double wave becoming clearer on the 8th floor, a matter not to be taken lightly. Jinhyuk fell into thought. With a serious expression, he explained that the double wave was a phenomenon where multiple waves of monsters from different floors descend simultaneously, causing extreme chaos. Melina grimaced from the pain in her eye, complaining it hurt so much. Despite discussing important matters, her injuries made it hard for her to stay calm for long. A close-up of Melina's eyes shining with anger showed that her patience had reached its limit, especially as confusing situations kept occurring one after another. Unable to bear it any longer, Melina threw a furious strike with a weapon charged with swirling energy, an instinctive reaction to the threat she sensed. Melina's blade clashed violently with an entity shrouded in darkness. Sparks flew, proving her strength and vigilance had not diminished despite being caught off guard. Jinhyuk immediately intervened, signaling to stop when he realized the figure in the darkness was an ally. He reassured Melina and prevented an unnecessary battle between the two sides. Melina reacted strongly, unable to hide her displeasure as she questioned back. Since when did allies have to hide in the shadows? Jinhyuk calmly replied, preparing to introduce the newly arrived companion. A solemn shadow emerged from the mist, carrying a calm yet overwhelming murderous aura. It was Wolyang, a member of the Dark Wind organization, notorious for actions like an invisible blade in the dark. His appearance made the surrounding space seem to freeze. A cold shadow stepped out into the morning light. It was Wolyang, a loyal swordsman from the Dark Wind organization. His sharp eyes and demeanor exuded the quiet danger of a seasoned warrior. System information appeared. Wolyang is male, 22 years old, level 47, with outstanding strength in agility and internal power. Skills like Shadow Assassin and Loyalty indicate he is a formidable bodyguard. However, a system warning sounded. Wolyang is currently following orders from Yang Homyang, not out of loyalty. This prevented Jinhyuk from copying his skills at this time. If Jinhyuk wants to acquire Wolyang's skills, the prerequisite is to earn the true loyalty of this mysterious warrior, a challenge full of hidden meaning in the future. Jinhyuk silently observed, quickly calculating in his mind. He knew that gaining Wolyang's loyalty would require staging a sufficiently subtle and convincing performance. Melina, unaccustomed to formalities, did not hesitate to tease Wolyang about his traditional costume. She playfully asked if he was filming a historical drama. With a mischievous smile and cunning eyes, Melina pulled out sharp scissors, ready to redesign Wolyang's style in her own way. But just as she was about to act, a group of assassins emerged from the shadows. Suddenly surrounded, Melina let out a startled scream, gripping the sword hilt tightly. From a high vantage point, the full scene appeared, an organized ambush with over 30 Dark Wind assassins surrounding the group. Jinhyuk told Melina to stay calm, affirming that those in the shadows were on their side. Melina breathed a sigh of relief, then quickly shifted to excitement. She enthusiastically praised Jinhyuk, believing their current force was strong enough to surpass Floor 8. Meanwhile, Jinhyuk silently activated the skill, Brand of Obedience. A new strategic move was underway. Under the bright light of the giant teleportation gate, Melina led the way eagerly, turning back to call Jinhyuk forward into Floor 8, where a new challenge awaited. 20 kilometers from the Floor 8 gate, a vast valley appeared with steep cliffs and endless pine forests, a peaceful scene hiding unpredictable dangers. In the silent forest, a notice board appeared, counting down to 0, signaling the activation time of the challenge had arrived. Just before the timer hit 0, a female mage named Clara anxiously called to her companion, Jack, who stood silently, sensing something unusual approaching. Among the worried crowd, Jack Friedman, an A-ranker from Guild Lockheed, spoke up confirming the scout team had not returned, raising ominous feelings. Jack leaned thoughtfully, his eyes sharp and cold. Although theory said surviving long enough on Floor 8 meant safety, signs indicated this was no longer true. A flash of determination lit Jack's eyes. The more he thought, the more certain he became that this floor was hiding something dangerous that no one dared to speak about. Deeper into the forest, Jack faced a swirling dark area like a pit that swallowed light, an oppressive force covering the woods with deadly pressure. A strange bare foot suddenly stepped on a branch behind Jack, signaling that some creature had approached without his knowledge. Reacting instinctively, Jack startled and turned around, eyes wide with caution as he realized what was behind him was not an ally but an unpredictable threat. Jack immediately activated the skill Physical Enhancement, preparing to confront the sudden danger nearby. His body glowed brightly, showing the energy surging within. A volley of sharp spears shot out from the mist, slicing through the air straight toward Jack and his team at incredible speed. This surprise attack left no time for anyone to react. Jack raised his hand to block, but the dense rain of weapons struck him multiple times. The pressure from the continuous attacks caused everyone to cry out in horror. Despite the physical enhancement, Jack still clearly felt the power surrounding him. His eyes were filled with confusion as he could not understand the source of this unusual strength. Reacting quickly, the group's female mage shouted a warning to the team. They were under attack. The atmosphere turned chaotic as everyone immediately switched to emergency combat mode. The group formed a defensive formation, facing the enemy about to reveal themselves. From the deep forest, heavy footsteps echoed, signaling a formidable threat approaching. The enemy appeared, a group of goblins with bodies cracked and glowing bright red. Though familiar in shape, the energy radiating from them made the team unable to underestimate them. Jack paused briefly, expressing doubt when he realized the opponents were just goblins, a monster species usually not very dangerous. However, something about them this time was truly unusual. Wasting no time, the female mage resolutely decided to strike first. A confident smile spread across her face as she raised her staff, declaring she would deal with the goblins swiftly. Immediately, she activated the fireball spell. A giant fireball appeared, shooting rapidly toward the enemies, creating a blazing explosion that pushed back the surrounding space. Catherine was shocked to realize her strongest attack had no effect on the monsters. Her eyes filled with fear as she sensed danger closing in too quickly. The goblins revealed terrifying speed, charging forward without hesitation, astonishing Catherine. Not only did they survive the magic, but they also counterattacked fiercely and effectively. One goblin suddenly leapt up from a gap, soaring through the air. Catherine, unprepared to defend, was hit by a surprise attack, blood dripping from her forehead amid a painful scream. The witch bowed her head, trying to calm herself while blood flowed down her face from the wound. Dizziness blurred her consciousness, but she still struggled to stand firm and fight back. A teammate called out Catherine's name in panic upon seeing her injured. They fought while warning each other. These goblins were poisoned. Even a single cut could be life-threatening. In the chaotic battle, Jack both blocked relentless attacks and was repeatedly called out to. His teammates awaited orders, but the situation was beyond normal coordination. The goblins' attacks carried unexpected power. Jack gradually realized these were not the usual weak goblins. They had been significantly enhanced. In a moment of heavy breathing, Jack froze as he realized without an immediate change in tactics, the entire team would be wiped out in a short time. As close combat descended into chaos, a mysterious shadow appeared in the battlefield. While everyone was still confused, he calmly approached as if the battle did not concern him. The stranger walked calmly, signaling silence. No one knew who he was, but his presence seemed to carry a completely different power. The mysterious man with a calm expression raised one finger, as if giving a supreme command, causing the surrounding space to fall silent in an instant. Immediately after the gesture, a series of sharp sword lights crossed down like a death net, slicing through the goblin formation, blood splattering everywhere, leaving only a cold phrase, "Understood." Amidst the storm of light and scattered enemy corpses, warriors dressed in black appeared simultaneously surrounding the commander, proving this was not a lone individual but a carefully prepared elite team. Jack and his teammates stood frozen before the scene. Panic was evident in their eyes as they witnessed all enemies eliminated in the blink of an eye. A dying goblin trembled in a pool of blood, weakly uttering its final sounds. Its end came so quickly that it was impossible to understand what had just happened. A strange foot stomped hard on the head of the dying enemy. The dry sound of breaking bones echoed, showing the newcomer's ruthless decisiveness. Jack glared as he recognized the owner of those shoes. He exclaimed in surprise, "Is it you?" Unable to hide the shock and conflicting emotions rising within him. Appearing amid the chaotic scene, the man wearing a black mask and glowing purple eyes was Unknown, a name that shook the entire battlefield. Beside him stood a red-haired girl full of presence. Unknown's eyes sank into darkness. His cold expression and invisible pressure seemed to compress the surrounding air, as if he was coldly observing and evaluating each person. Jack's gaze finally focused on the unusual symbol on the dead goblin's forehead, sharp red streaks signaling a terrifying force behind this attack. Sharp spears flew swiftly through the air, cutting through the wind like lightning toward their target with destructive speed. The battlefield atmosphere suddenly tensed like a drawn bowstring. At the moment the spear was about to hit, Unknown immediately activated the skill Moon Eclipsing Claws, summoning a fiery red demonic arm with sharp claws that easily caught the attack. With purple eyes flashing through the mask, Unknown stood motionless, coldly watching his giant hand grasp the entire spear, as if this was just a warm-up. 3 giant warriors bearing fierce red streaks appeared, roaring angrily when they saw their attack blocked. But Unknown coldly asked, "Are these spears yours?" Right after the casual words, he activated the skill Sword Steps of the King, and Unknown's figure suddenly vanished from sight, dashing toward the target like a black lightning bolt piercing the darkness. The giants had just turned when Unknown approached. A series of glowing red magic blades flew past, slicing through the air, accompanied by a notification of the enemy's skill activation, Mana Spears. The ground exploded with a series of violent shocks. Magical spears plunged down like a rain of fire, engulfing the entire battlefield in flames and dust. Nevertheless, Unknown weaved through the bloodthirsty giants like a ghostly wind. He moved extremely fast, dodging every strike in an instant to get closer for the finishing blow. Without hesitation, Unknown unleashed the skill Dark Sky Demon Ruler. From his fist, a radiant black-purple demonic energy swirled fiercely like a storm, signaling an imminent strike. In an instant, a series of punches exploded onto the giants. The tremendous impact distorted their bodies, sending them flying backward, completely unable to resist. The final finishing blow struck like thunder in a clear sky. The head of the giant ogre shattered with a heavy thud, blood splattering as proof of the absolute destructive power of the attacker. Watching that scene, the blonde warrior could not believe his eyes. He didn't even see the opponent's strike, only the aftermath of corpses before him. The power gap exceeded his understanding. In another corner, Woliang, with calm and cold eyes, nodded slightly as if acknowledging the recent power. The system immediately notified that his respect level for Unknown had increased by 5 points, a sign not to be underestimated. Meanwhile, Unknown slightly tilted his head, his eyes flashing doubt. He wondered whether a cold and arrogant person like Woliang truly knew how to respect anyone, or if the system was simply misinterpreting the nature. Witnessing the giant ogre's corpse lying sprawled on the open ground, the red-haired girl was stunned and asked why these monsters appeared on floor 8 when this place was supposed to be safe. Unknown's face darkened. Observing the red patterns on the ogre's body, he immediately recognized the power enhancement symbol of the floor 9 boss, something that should never appear on floor 8. This contradicted all the rules of the Tower of Trials. The young man wearing the wooden mask quietly stood up and looked toward his teammates. He now fully understood the meaning of the so-called double wave, a wave of monsters that defied the rules, carrying the scent of danger and chaos. From a high vantage point, the two now stood amid the giant ogre corpses. Their shadows were sharply cast on the blood-stained ground, like two warriors emerging from an ancient battlefield, ready to face the hidden truth. Inside the magic orb, Unknown was being watched. Purple light danced around the wooden mask, his eyes maintaining a terrifying calm. Some force was observing his every move from afar. Then, a confirmation echoed in the darkness. Floors 8 and 9 had formed an alliance. This was not only an unusual event but also a signal that the forces within the Tower of Trials were beginning to break the boundaries of the rules. Within the observation mist, a giant feathered hand suddenly reached out, lightly touching the surveillance orb displaying images of Jinhyuk and Melina. A cold voice sounded from the observer, implying that a troublesome intruder had entered their territory, a clear confirmation that Jinhyuk's presence had been detected by the ruling power here. The shadow gradually took shape, a creature with massive wings and a black and white feathered body, bearing the appearance of a fallen angel. He raised his hand in oath, affirming that all actions and preparations were dedicated to an individual called the Chosen One, a dangerous signal indicating the enemy was not only powerful but also fanatically devoted.